All right, so hello, students, teachers, Ralph, Mrs. Ralph, and the whole world. My name is Stanley Premnath. So, if you want to see a handsome guy, go and whatever search engine you want, look me up, and you see the handsome brown guy, that's me. So, I currently work for a Japanese bank, Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corp. Whatever all that means, I don't know. But I've been a banker for a long, long time. I started my career as a school teacher. Didn't like school teaching, so I switched to banking, and here I am. During that 9/11 fiasco, that infamous day, that wonderful Tuesday, September 11, I worked for Fuji Bank Limited, and we were located on the 81st floor of the second tower, which we call 2 World Trade Center. I worked there as an assistant vice president, and I helped to run their operation. So we had 4 floors that we occupied, the 79 to the 82nd floor. And I work on the south side of that south tower. So fasten your seatbelts and let me give you a conducted tour and tell you exactly what happened that day. You may read it in the history books, you may have seen it on TV, but I want to give you the inside feedback of exactly what happened, where I was, and how I was able to escape. Before we get into the meat of the story, I want to tell you about my affiliation. I'm a churchgoer, and by vocation, I'm also a licensed minister of the gospel. I'm not here to preach to you, but I want to tell you that had it not been for my faith, I would not have been where I am today. Had it not been for the grace of God and this one good man who stopped to investigate when they heard me scream, I would not have lived. And I'm here as a soldier to tell you what I've noticed, what I've seen, what I've gone through, and how I was able to bounce back. In my life, I've coined that phrase and I live by it. Life is about getting up and going forward. Life is not looking back so much, but to tell that story. And I'm here to tell you that story. So bear with me for the next 35 to 45 minutes, and I promise I would not keep you bored. All right, here we go. September 11th, wonderful, bright Tuesday morning. We lived in a town they call Elmont, and I commute by driving and taking the train to go to Lower Manhattan. I lived in New York. I'm getting dressed, and I'm telling my wife that I'll wear my lucky shoe and my khaki pants and white shirt. And we had this tiny little house with one bathroom, and she is doing her hair, and she is telling me that she is having a bad hair day. And I still can't figure out what a bad hair day is. And I'm praying in my heart that same prayer that I carried all my life. Lord, cover me and all my loved ones under your precious blood. Take us to work and bring us back home in peace and safety. And she said, Stan, that's an ugly pair of shoes. I said, all right, I'm going to wear my ugly shoe today. Had I not worn that shoe, chances are I would not have been able to walk again. Today, that shoe is in a shoe box with the word deliverance written all around it. I don't know why I wrote it, but I feel in my heart that if ever I get cold and I get lukewarm and I forget where I was in that day, I want to be brought back and that box should be opened and I want to see to remember the atrocities that were committed on our soil and what the good Lord did for me. So I grabbed my briefcase, kissed my young ones. We had 2 children, still have the 2 children now. One is married and I'm now a grandfather. And the younger one is home working, myself and my wife too. So I jumped in the little old car that I had and drove to the borough of Queens, took the A train, and I went to Lower Manhattan. 2 hours one way. I pick up my raisin bagel, a cup of coffee, pushes the button on the elevator from the lobby, and less than 1 minute, I'm zoomed up to the lobby of the second tower, the 78th floor. Got out of that elevator, walked across the hallway, took the local elevator, and went to the 81st floor. I walked all the way from the north side of the tower to the south side and made a right to the end and walked into a huge glass office. It was surrounded by glass, so we called it the big glass office. One young lady is making the copies at the copier, And I greeted her. Her name was Delise Seriano. She was from the Dominican Republic. And she said, Stan, how you doing? I said, I'm special, thank you. And she said, I know you're special, Stan. You see, my pastor used to tell us anywhere you go in New York, people so busy, they ask you how you're doing. And before you respond, they're walking away. If you tell them you're special, they would turn and give you that look. And they would ask you, some of them, what make you special? And you tell them you're a child of God. And they would smile, and that would make your day and their day. So she said, Stan, I know you're special. And I'm walking towards my desk. As I'm walking towards my desk, the phone rang, and my mother is on the phone. Stan, how you doing? I'm fine. And then my brothers, Steve, Paul, Bill, they stopped, asked me the same question. Nobody never told me at that point that the first building was hit. Had I known that the first building was hit, I would have gone back home. But I was in the elevator coming up, and the building was soundproof, and I did not know anything. I hung up the phone, and I saw something towards the corner of my eyes, because where I sat on the 81st floor, if I was to look an angle to my right, I could have seen part of the Brooklyn Bridge. If I swiveled around a little bit to my right, I could have seen the Statue of Liberty. And if I look all the way towards my back, I could have seen the Hudson overlooking Jersey City and part of the North Tower. So what I saw in the corner of my eyes as I put my briefcase and coffee down was chunks of fireballs falling from the sky. So I walk close to the windows and I'm looking up way towards the top of the first building because the first building was hit way on top. As I'm looking, I can see chunks of fireballs falling down. So I called to the young lady. I said, Delise, come, take a look. What is happening? She says, oh, God, Stan, I don't know, but I'm scared. So I walk back, grab the phone, and I'm calling my boss, Peter Del Grasso. Pete, son, pick up. Son in Japanese is Mr. or Sir. No response. I call his boss, Bobby. Bobby Militaglio. Bobby, pick up. No response. Oh my God, what is happening? And Delise says, I'm scared. I said, all right, let's get out of here. We ran out of the office, ran down the hallway. We're back to where the elevator is. We pushed the button, the local elevator came. We went back to the 78th floor, the sky lobby. Multiple elevators, crowded lobby. And we were just standing there waiting for the elevator to come. The elevator came, and every person from our office, all the big shots, the CEO, the head of human resources, all these big shots are there. They're standing up. The doors open right in front of us. We stepped in the elevator, and less than 1 minute, we're zoomed back down to the ground floor. The doors open up. I stepped out. The security guard says, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going home. We saw fireballs falling down. He said, no, your building is safe, is secure. Go back to their office. And you could hear the siren and the whoop whoop sound. Your building is safe, is secure. Go back to your office. And I don't know what to do. All the big shots are in the office. 19 of us. I stepped out and I'm deciding what to do. Dilly stepped out of the elevator and she says, Stan, I'm scared. I'm going home. I said, well, take the rest of the day off. And one of the guys in the elevator says, Stan, how can you do this? We have an operation here to run. I said, no. I'm running the operation and she is going home. And that's probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And this young lady, she's walking away. She's turning back, looking at me with this kind of look. Oh man, what did I do? I get this man into trouble. And she's waving and I'm waving her goodbye and she's gone. The door is trying to close, and Manny Gomez is holding on one side of the door, and Jackie Andriacchio is holding on to the next door, and the elevator door is going to close, and it's making that ping, that sound. And I'm like, oh man, what am I supposed to do? And the guys in the elevator are saying, come on, Stan the man, we don't have all day. We have an operation here to run. You're not scared to go back up. And at that point, I'm still not sure what I should be scared of. And I'm walking back slowly, deciding what to do. And the next thing I know, I'm stepping back into the elevator and I'm reliving 1993 February 26th, when they truck bombed that place, 1,200 pounds of explosive in a pickup truck. Parked the truck there, and the guy walks away, presses the remote control, and the bomb blew up. And that's the day I thought I was going to die. I remember my supervisor at the time, she had ordered Chinese food, pork chops and rice, and we were having lunch, and the bomb exploded and all hell broke loose. The lights flickered, the building just trembled, and the place got dark. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die today. And the lady starts to scream. And I sat there, my friend, and I ate that pork chop. And I said, Lord, if I'm coming home today, I'm coming with a full stomach. And I just cleared that pork chop. And the next thing I know, we were relocated on the 84th floor and got home 2 o'clock that next morning. My wife thought I died. So here I am stepping in the elevator, 9/11, walks in the elevator, the door closes. And I remember the look on all these people's faces and the smiles that I would never see again. I remember one of the fellas, he had his sweater tucked in his khakis. I said, come on, Kawuchi, come on, man. It's a warm, nice day. And everybody smiled. And I remember Alicia Levin, she's looking at me, come on, Stan, only you can do that. Never know that I would never see these people again. And we were zoomed up, and less than 1 minute, we were back on the 78th floor. And one man stopped in front of me as we were walking towards the elevator, and he is going in. And this man had forgotten his laptop, and this man was going to get it. And he walks in front of me, and he went into the men's room as we got to the 81st floor, and I never saw that man today. Never saw him back again. And I live with that survival guilt. When the wife and the child called me and says, did you see my dad? Did you see my husband? Yeah. Where was he? He went in the men's room. And I cried and I cried, Lord, why me? Of all these good men and women, why, Lord? Until I stopped one day and asked myself, Lord, why not me? Why not me? Stan, why not you? You live for reasons you don't understand, and I still can't figure out my calling. But one day I stopped and I said, you know what? I have to tell the good news, and that's probably why. And I may never understand why God chose me of all these other people. So I walked back into my office, and when I walked there, the phone is ringing again. And the young lady from Chicago, she's calling me this time. And this is what she said, Stan, get out. Get out for what? Stan, you're not logged on in the computer. You're not logged on the monitor. You're not watching the news. No. Tell me why. Stan, we don't have the time. Please, get out. And assuring her I'm fine, not knowing why I should get out, I just happened to raise my head with the phone in my hand, and I'm looking towards the direction of the Statue of Liberty, and something caught my attention. Small at first, and it's getting larger by a split second. Realizing that it's a plane coming towards me, gray in color, and you on the tail, United Airlines 175, is bearing down on me, eye-level eye contact. I kind of got mesmerized, hypnotized, just stopping my tracks, not knowing what to do. I'm kind of in a daze the last couple seconds before the impact. And in my head, I can hear, even until now, that revving sound the engine made as the plane is coming towards me. And as the plane is coming towards me, this plane started to tilt. The bottom wing on one end and the top wing, and the plane with the most thunderous sound just boom, crashed into the floor just seconds before, split seconds. I dove under the desk, and all I remember saying was, Lord, I can't do this, you take over. And I don't know why I said that. And the plane crashed into the building. The bottom wing took the 79th floor, and the top wing took the 82nd floor, the 4 floors that we had. And upon impact, every wall was flattened. Every piece of furniture was mangled. Every windows were popped. And the floor above me collapsed, and it was just hovering over the desk that I'm hiding under. And the only desk that stood firm was the desk that I'm hiding under, and my Bible was on top of that desk. What is that chance? It looks like somebody took a giant bag of cement and just threw it in the air. and the air got so thick you can't even see in front of your face. And a large chunk of the plane was stuck in the office doorway, 20 feet from where I am, and all around me is blazing. The cables dropped from the ceiling and they're short circuiting because the sprinkler system came on. One way or the other, I'm going to die. And the air pressure was so great, and the people who you see probably jumping out, some of them probably were sucked out by the air pressure. And I'm screaming, Lord, I don't want to die. Please send somebody, anybody to help me. And I don't know why God heard that scream. And the first scream I made, somebody on the other end had a flashlight and it was shining out over the head. And I'm saying to myself, this can't be real. This cannot be real. All these people left me here to die. This time everybody died and left me. What is that chance? You call on God and the first time, and somebody is on the other way waiting to help you. And I'm screaming, please don't leave me to die. Please, Lord, I don't want to die. And the person could hear me and was telling me later on, I was hearing you, but I couldn't hear that person because I was temporarily deaf. The sound was too great, it just popped my ear. And I started to crawl because I couldn't stand up. The floor above me was hovering. And I said, oh my God, this thing is going to collapse. It's going to crash me, and then I'm going to die. And I crawled the entire length of the loans department to the lounge and the computer room and the communication room. One floor was like 1 acre square, massive building. And as I got to that point just behind where the person with the flashlight was, I could hear faint and the person saying, bang on the wall, I'll know where you are. So I start banging on the wall. The man says, I can hear you. Now climb over the wall. It's a 10 feet sheetrock wall, hollow ceiling because most of the ceiling was caved in and part of the hanging loose one was there. And I'm like, I can't do it. You got to think about your family. You got to do it or you're going to die. I tried jumping the first time to grab on top and I missed, and a part of hanging loose sheetrock just caved in and trying to prevent if I hit it in my face. I just raised up my hand and a black sheetrock screw just went to my palm. He said, what happened? I said, a nail went in my palm. He says, bite it out and try again. I can't do it. He said, hit the wood and the nail is going to come out. I took that option. The nail came out and the hand just ballooned inside. My God, I'm in worse shape than before. And I start playing with this God that I've heard so much about. And the person behind this wall is telling me that you're going to die. You're crazy. And all I remember saying, Lord, if you wanted me to die, why did you bring me all the way here to leave me? What is going to befall my wife and our children? Who's going to walk the girls down the aisle when they get married? Who's going to pay all the bills that we have? Lord, I don't want to die. Please, Lord. And that's all I'm saying, and I'm crying out. And all I remember, I made a fist as tightly as I could, and I looked at this wall, and I'm saying to myself, I can really punch a hole through this. And I can hear in my head our pastor is preaching, and he's saying that same thing over and over. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's all I can hear. And I start caressing this wall, and I don't know why. But all I remember, I punched with all the force I could gather. And I punched so hard that my fist passed right through that wall. What is that chance? So the man grabbed my fist. I punched after that punch. He said, I see your hand. I said, when you see my head, he yanked my body through. I punched the hole that bigger and I pushed my head through. And this man gave me a headlock and I squirmed and he pulled with such force that I flew over the other side. He was standing on a heap of debris and I just knocked him off his feet, and together we rolled down 10 flights of stairs and we landed on the 80th floor. When we landed on the 80th floor, I don't know how to thank this man who just saved my life. I just hugged this man around his neck and I gave him a kiss on the cheek, and he said, what are you doing? He got up, stretched his hand, fixed his ties, and he says, Brian Clark. And I said, Stanley Pramath. And this man did something that I'll go to the grave with. This man held my hand gently and he took his left index finger And this man started rubbing my hands inside that was wounded and was bleeding. And he stared me in the eyes, my friend. And he said, all my life I live as an only child. I was born and raised in Canada. I always wanted a brother. And today I find that man. And this good old Irish man put his hand around my shoulder. And he took the hand that was bleeding, and his left palm had a gash. And he rubbed it together and he says, from today, you're my blood brother. He says, come on, buddy, let's go home. And we started that long journey home. You had to walk 10 flights of stairs, turn in the landing, another 10 flights of stairs, and then you cover one floor. We had 80 floors to go. And that lucky shoe was giving me all the traction that I needed. The water was just cascading down the stairwells, and through the cracks in the wall, you can hear the flames. They're just licking off the office space. And the water was just cascading down the stairwells. And I'm encouraging Brian, we gotta go, it's going. Stan, what you see going, burning there is just draperies and cosmetic and paper. By profession, I'm an engineer and steel don't bend. That's what he is telling me. No, it's going. And I don't know why I'm saying this, but I'm repeating it. And I was in the best shape of my life, but I just couldn't breathe properly. And we stopped somewhere in the 46th floor. We stopped there. Brian put his hand in the door. There was no heat coming out. And we walked straight into somebody's office. And he picked up the phone and he was calling somebody. And I can hear the conversation. He's telling the person, oh, I've got this guy from Fuji Bank. He's in bad shape, but we're coming home. But while he's talking there, I can hear this crying, this moaning sound. And I turned and I saw something that every night before I go to sleep, I can hear that sound in my head. It's a man on the ground, on the floor, and he's crying. I don't like to describe people in color, but this was an Italian man, closely shaved head. And he was lying down, broken back, massive head injury, and bubbles and blood is oozing out from his scalp. And he is saying the same thing over and over. Please tell my wife and our baby that I love them. We just had a baby. And an African American security guard stood by and was guarding this man. And he guarded this man with his life. He could have escaped, but he chose to stay. And none of those men made it out. I picked up the phone and I called my wife, who was working over the Brooklyn Bridge in a building that was very secured. A lot of privacy. I couldn't visit that building because of security reasons. You got to go through three sets of metal detectors. She worked for the New York Stock Exchange. Their building, they did all the security update for the software for the exchange. So they were hidden over the Brooklyn Bridge. I called her. She was at work that day. She saw the first plane hit. The second plane hit the second building, and she says in her mind, afterwards, she told me, there's no way Stan can get out of this. He is gone. One of the girls took her, dropped her to the subway, and says, all right, Jen, I got to go home. And she in her heart felt that I was dead. But you know what? God had other things in store for me. I hung up this phone, and after I spoke to her supervisor, told her, if you get in contact with Jenny, tell her that I'm coming home to you girls. Brian is frantically dialing 911. There's a man down. Please send help. And they're rerouting the calls. And we continued walking down. We saw one man coming up, Jose. As he was coming up, he had a walkie-talkie in his hand. Somebody was calling him for help, and he was going to help. And Brian introduced Jose as a friend of his. And we continued, and he walked up. You see, while we were there on the 81st floor, when I screamed and Brian came, he was coming down with a group of 6 other people. When they heard the scream, they thought something worse was happening. They ran back up and they made the wrong choice. Brian later told me on CNN and BBC, had he not heard that scream, he would have thought something worse was happening when they saw so much debris on the floor, and he would have gone back and he would have perished. Because I screamed, he lived. So Brian and I walked all the way down. And when we got there, the only people we saw were the firefighters and the cops and the EMS workers. And these people were shocked when they saw us because they never thought other people were trapped above the 81st floor. And these good men and women in uniform were running back into the building, going to rescue the people. And you can hear that scream. And we had a choice of stopping and investigating and going forward. And these good men and women were sending us to freedom. Go, go, go to Liberty. Liberty Street, that is, meant just a street at the time. Today, it is total freedom. Do not look up, do not look around, and I don't know where to go. And Brian is navigating us, and we are running hand in hand, and it looks like a scene from Forrest Gump. And we are running, and the people cheering, run, 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 go for it. And not one piece of falling debris hit us. All those broken glass that came down like confetti, not one piece. And we are running so hard, and they had roped around 4 blocks at the Trade Center. And as we were running, I just bumped into this guy. And he looked at me. He said, my God, you're in bad shape. What happened? Brian told him that we just came out of the building, was a Catholic priest. He had his collar on. And the man, I remember, said, you need the hospital badly, but you need prayers. And right there, Brian and that man prayed for me. And the next thing I remember, I'm holding on to the fence of the Trinity Church. And later on, Brian told me, he asked me, where was I going? If I remember what I said. Brian said, I told him that I was going to the Trinity Church, and he said he was coming with me. Many things I didn't remember from the time that thing happened there where we met that priest and they prayed for me to the time I reached that church fence. But as I held on to that fence, I'm telling Brian, it's going now. Now we're watching this scene from behind the Trinity Church. And Brian says, Stan, you're in shock. What do you see burning there? Remember I told you, it's all draperies and cosmetic and paper. And the building starts to sway. And you can see the building swaying. It was like trembling. And oh my God, it's going to tilt over. And then it stopped and it came back straight again. Oh my God, it's going the other way. It's going to tilt over. And it stopped. And then the building starts to tremble. It's like vibrating. You can feel the earth vibrating, shaking like a tremor. And the next thing to know, the building starts to implode one floor after the other. Boom, 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 boom. Because we were hiding at the backside of the church, when the building went down, poof, the church took the blunt force of everything that came towards us. So every step of the way we were protected. And the sound was so great, my ears were popped again. Oh God, and you heard this proverbial phrase, this cliche, all hell broke loose, but let me tell you what it is. As the building imploded, it created a giant vacuum, and all that smoke that was in the cross streets and the air, it was dragging it towards the core. So it looks like a giant tsunami of smoke. And all the people who were roped around, they were screaming and yelling. Some were cursing. And the ladies were taking out their heels, high heels that is, throwing it, and they were running. And the not so able were getting trampled. And in my heart, they're bombing the financial area. And I got to go save Jenny, my wife. And I'm screaming for Brian, and I can't see this man. And in my heart, he is my guardian angel who came to save me. And his job was done, and he is gone. And I can't see this man. And I'm screaming, Brian, Brian. And I'm looking for something, somebody. I got to go over the Brooklyn Bridge. I don't know how to get there. And I saw a man driving on top of the sidewalks and the streets and everything. And I ran alongside the 4x4 pickup truck, the white truck he was driving. He yanked the door open, looked at this man and said, drive. One word from you, you're dead. The man looks at me. I had just my undershirt. It looks like it came from a shredder. And the man thought I'm one of these bad guys. He reached on top of the dashboard, give me a box of white cigarette. He says, here, smoke. I said, no, man, I had enough smoke for one day. And he smiled. And I says, Brooklyn Bridge. That's all I said. And he drove there. And when he got to the ramp, I yanked the door open. Thank you, jumped out. And I'm hobbling, pushing the people away. Get out of my way. Get out of my way. And I bumped into this big guy. And I'm like, all right, now this guy's going to kill me. The guy turns around to compassion on me. What happened to you? I just came out of that building. Oh my God, you need the hospital. I said, he said, where are you going? I said, I got to go to 2 Metro Tech, he says, but I don't know how to get there. And he said, I live right behind that building. What is that chance one person out of 40,000 people on top of that bridge knows exactly where you have to go and you bump into that right person? But I said, I'm not going. He said, what do you mean you're not going? I said, because they hot-wired this bridge and everybody's going to die. Well, why did I say that? I don't know. It was just a feeling. I'm a logical-minded person. He said, sit down. So we sat on top of the bridge and people are screaming and running away. And he said, Stan, listen to that sound. Tell me what you hear. And you can hear the F-16s hovering over Lower Manhattan. I said, that is Uncle Sam taking care of business. He said, oh, come on, let's go. I was in Vietnam. And I'm saying to myself, I got a right man here. And we start to run. And we got to the lobby of the building where my wife works. And when we got there, the security guard looks at me and says, oh, no, you're not coming in here. And this man, Albert, he says his name was Albert de Leon. He was making so much noise. He said he's senior counsel for a French bank. All this man wants to do is see his wife who works in the legal department. And the security guard came, and the next thing I saw, he took a guard stick and he's approaching me, and I took a karate stand. And by that time, the lady heard we were looking, the receptionist, that we were looking for Jennifer, and she called Jennifer's department, and her boss was in a meeting, and the guy came running towards us, and the next thing we know, he pushed the security guard to one side and says, what are you guys doing? Stan is a good guy. And this good man took out his white shirt and said, Stan, you can have my shirt. This man said, give Stan anything he wants, just make him well. And he said, Stan, I don't have the time. We're in the middle of an emergency meeting. I've got to go. And he was gone. The nurse came, tried to take care of all the wounds that I had. And he said, Stan, you need the hospital badly. I said, no. If only I can hear my wife's voice, I will be fine. But I couldn't remember the number. I said, give me a phone. I took my left hand because my right hand had a gash in it and that nail wound. And I'm dialing frantically. And the number pops into my head. And here's my wife. Stan, are you okay? Yes, the Lord took care of me. I'm coming home to you girls. When I hung up that phone, a nurse says, we can't send you home with a car, Stan. They shut down the parkway. And the trains are not running, but I walk you down to the subway. And I'm like, why are you going to take me down to the train station if the train is not running? But we went down and we stood there for like 7 minutes. And I can't explain it any other way. But it looks like magic to me. And all of a sudden, a train pulls up in the platform, the A train that I have to take to go home. I couldn't believe it, and the lady couldn't believe it. I stepped in the train, and as soon as I stepped in, the door closed. And the lady couldn't believe it, and as the train is pulling away, she's running alongside with her hands in her mouth like this, like in disbelief, and she's waving me goodbye. And I was gone. Every time the train stopped, I poked my head out to look. There's nobody coming in or going out. It looked in retrospect that the train just came for me, stopped where I had to go, got out, got to my car. When I got there, I realized, oh my God, I can't buckle the seatbelt. And I'm saying to myself, today I'm going to get a ticket. Of all the things that just happened to me, I'm thinking about it. I'm going to get a ticket, Mr. Ralph. I'm saying to myself, no, I don't want a ticket. I tried to buckle on the seatbelt, and I drove like a robot, and I went home. I pulled up in the driveway. When I got there, all the neighbors, they came, and they just run, and they hugged me, and they kissed me, and thank God you're safe, Stan, thank God. And I woke up the stairs, and there's Jenny and the 2 girls. Stephanie was 8.5, and Caitlin was 4. I reached for Caitlin. And as I reach for this child, the child starts screaming, please don't touch me, you're not my daddy. I was 90% black and blue and swollen, and gashed up and fully, I was literally a bloody mess. And she couldn't recognize me. And guys, when your child don't recognize you, you would reach that breaking point. And I reached for my older daughter, Stephanie, and I hugged this child, and she had the butter knife in one hand. She just had a sandwich. And as I hugged this child says, Dad, if you didn't come home, I was going to kill myself. And when that child said what she said after all that I went through, my friend, didn't mean anything. I just remembered I hugged my wife and the two girls, and I said, Lord, thank you. Thank you for taking care of us. And the next thing I know, a doctor is leaning over me, and the doctor is saying to somebody in the phone, this man lost his mind. It may take a month, a day, a week, a year. Eventually, he may snap out, but there's no guarantee. And I could hear everything that he was saying, just that I couldn't respond in speech. I wanted to grab his neck and say, I can hear you, but I couldn't. I lost it all. And I started that slow road to recovery. And by God's grace, I was sitting on the couch. I don't know what day it was. And all I can remember, I was hearing the newscaster saying 911 is an emergency call. September is spelled with 9 letters, and she is going on. And I called out to my wife, Jan, can you bring my Bible? And I'm looking to my Bible for 911. And I don't know what happened, but my Bible was just falling apart. And all I remember, I'm looking at Psalm 91, verse 1, and I read that psalm. And that was the psalm that gave me much comfort. And I'll read just a little part of that psalm. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And the last part of the psalm that caught my attention, he shall call upon me, and I will hear, will answer, will be with him in times of trouble. And I snapped out, and I start recognizing people and faces and everybody else. And I got back my memory, and it was all because of the grace of God and that one good man who stopped to investigate and help me. And today I'm a testimony of grace, and I want to say because of my faith and because of my outlook in life, I was able to bounce back. Many people could not have, and I don't know why, but I believe strongly that my faith was able, or that what made me to bounce back. And today I want to give God all the thanks. And I want to thank all of you for listening. And I hope I didn't burden you or bore you to death, because I know how history lessons can be sometimes. So now is your time, and this is your opportunity to ask me anything that comes to mind.
So I'm spotlighting your video, so you are all the kids see. Is it okay if I unmute some of the kids to ask you some questions?
Absolutely, go for it.
Right, so we have Anahi from Ecuador. Anahi, you are unmuted. You can go ahead and ask Stanley your question.
Okay, first of all, hello Stanley. It was so good to hear your story.
Thank you.
For sharing that to us. And I ask you a question, and this is: if you could change one thing about what you did during all this, what would it be?
If I was to change one thing about what?
About what you did during all this. About one decision. If you could change one decision you took during all this, what would it be?
If I was to change one decision on that day, what I would have done was to go home after the first building hit and we went downstairs in the lobby. I would not have gone back up if I was to rewind that clock. However, it was a bad decision to make, especially when your bosses are in that elevator and nobody is coming out, and you're the only one who is left outside. So if I was to change that, I would go back and say, you know what? I'm going home. I want to live. I hope that answers your question.
It does. We have a pretty good question from Maria in Argentina. Maria, you should be able to unmute and ask Stanley your question.
Hi, Stanley. Thank you for your testimony.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you, in what way did the attack change your vision of life?
All right. One way that it changed my life, I didn't take anything for granted after that. The people who I love, I tell them that I love them. The things that I used to take for granted, I no longer take for granted. I'm not a person who openly would show affection. I would hug you, I would give you a peck on the cheek, but that's as far that I would go. But I find myself, I would leave. I work from home. Let's say my wife is in the room sitting down on her desk working. I would leave downstairs, come on stairs, upstairs in the room, just to give her a hug and say, you know what? I really love you. So it changed that whole outlook. It changed that whole perspective. And I don't take things for granted any longer. So
We have a question from Manuela in Colombia. Manuela, I'll just go ahead and ask her question. It's kind of along the lines of what Maria had asked you from Argentina, and Manuela wanted to know what has changed in your life after the accident.
well, what changed my life or how I changed? The first thing I did, I start doing some soul searching. And I told myself, you know what? There was a reason why some people live and some people died. I may never understand why. I may not understand the selection process God has. And I decided that I want to tell the good news. And one of the ways I decided in my heart that telling the good news would be is to be a pastor. So I decided that I want to study. So I told my wife, I said, look, I want to be a pastor. And she said, no, Stan, that's a hard life. I said, no. She said, my dad is a pastor. I said, I know all that. But I want to be that one person who stands up to say, you know what? I will tell that good news. So I start studying. I became a certified pastor. I studied again. I became a licensed pastor. And I never stopped studying. So my life has changed drastically. From the things that I used to do, I do them no more. From the places I used to go, no, I'm not going. I'm not one person who stands out as being different. I want to be different. I want to tell you that there is a supreme being. And if you call with all your heart and soul and mind and body, he's going to hear and intervene. So my life changed. And I've never stopped doing what I am doing. 19 years have passed. And I think if God grants me some more years, whatever it is, I would tell people of that good grace.
Wonderful, wonderful advice, sir. And we just have a couple more questions because I know it's getting kind of late there. We have Shannon in Venezuela has a great question, and I've always wondered this myself. So Shannon, you should be able to unmute. Trying to unmute her, but her question was, I'll go ahead and ask it for. Oh, there you are. Okay, so she has kind of a rough connection there. So her question was regarding Brian Clark. What became of Brian Clark after September 11th?
All right.
You guys still keep in contact?
Brian Clark and I keep in contact, constant contact. Brian assumes the role as a big brother towards me. Brian is the kind of guy who remembers the anniversaries. He remembers the birthdays of the children. He remembers everything. And he's the one who reaches out to me more than I reach out to him. He went into early retirement after 9/11. I continued working, but he's the guy who would walk around the car, make sure I put on my seatbelt before he drives. He is the kind of guy who would call me, Stan, are you able to pay your bills? Diane is a great cook, his wife. Why don't you come here, stay? Diane is going to cook. I'm going to drop you to work. Brian is the kind of guy, if you're in trouble, you would want him as a big brother. Brian's daughter got married, and Jenny and I got invited, my wife and I, that is. And we sat on the same table with Brian and his wife. Not even his children sat there. And he introduced me as his brother. And you know what's a funny thing? All the children and grandchildren call me Uncle Stan. Here it is, an Irishman, and all these white kids, Irish kids calls me Uncle Stan, and everybody's like, something is not right here. But Brian would go to the grave and tell you that I'm the brother he always wanted. I call him GQ and he calls me his brown brother. Brian is a great guy. So we keep constant contact.
Well, from us to Brian, if you could thank him for bringing you out of those towers that day. So Brian's a hero, and so please tell him we all say thank you.
I will.
Here is Kirsten, and we'll have one more question after this. Kirsten, you should be able to unmute yourself. You had a pretty good question for Brian.
So, do you think that if it wasn't for that guy that heard you screaming and came to come help you, do you think by like your own willpower, do you think you could have got out alive?
I do not think I would have been able to make that out alive. I believe with all my heart that Brian was sent for a reason I don't know, but he is my guardian angel. He was sent to comfort me in that time of trouble. He was sent to lead me out of that mayhem, that distressed place, to a place of safety. And once as his job was finished there, I was free. So Brian, without him, I would never have been able to do it. Brian was the guy who maneuvered me, sort of, guided me through that maze to total freedom. And I owe my life, I owe everything to God first and to Brian, my big brother.
We have one last question from a student in America who had emailed me, and I'm sorry to everyone that if we didn't get to your questions, there were so many questions and we can't keep them here all night. But there were a number of students, including Gabriel in Venezuela, who wanted me to say thank you to you for such an inspiring story. The final question was from a student in America, and they wanted to know what about your story, what can you tell as far as the importance of kindness to others, especially strangers?
I want to tell you that it was that one day where every one of us were covered by the same ash, and we did not look indifferently. For a man who was born and raised in Canada to embrace me as a minority, to a man who was waiting as a security guard to another man who was lying on the ground, who gave his life for that man, who could have chosen to escape but did not. Tell something that in America, in our land, in this life, they're good people. They're people who would give their life for other people. I want to tell you that the color of the skin does not matter. Is that grace that holds us together, who strengthens us, who keeps us in that togetherness. And I want to tell you that there are good people left in this world. As I travel around the country and the world, by invitation to churches and schools and colleges all around, church groups would invite me and I would travel and I go. People would tell me one thing. I don't want to hug you. I don't want to shake your hand, that is. I do not want to shake your hands. I want to hug you instead. And when you hear words like that, it would touch the core of your being, the fiber of your soul. It would touch you to know that they are good people. But you know what? Lend your cares to the Lord. Pray to God. Embrace people. Be friends. Let people know that you're different. And always pray for them. And God in His infinite mercies would bless you tremendously.
You are an absolute inspiration. And before we let Stanley go, I hope everyone, wherever you guys are in the world, that everyone is healthy and happy and safe and with your loved ones. And please know that Stanley's family is safe, and they're both of his girls are grown up, and you know, I'm going to, before I end the meeting, I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. So, because we have a number of students who want to thank him personally, I'm going to go ahead and allow you guys to unmute yourself. And if we can all say thank you to Stanley, and then I'll end the meeting for all. So can we all say thank you to Stanley?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley.